In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Secret Lair Superdrop for fall of 2023 and going through all of the announced Secret Lairs and taking a look to see whether or not they might be worth your time or investment. Let's jump into the video. First one up is now on VHS. This one I'm a little bit biased because it is absolutely one of my favorite concepts in quite a while, and the artwork on these is beautiful, but we're going to look at it objectively, and assuming that we're paying $30 for the non-foil and $40 for the foil, see whether or not this is actually worth it for what you're paying. Now, the first sliver, which is only in Modern Horizons 1 up until now, is getting a reprint here, and of course the artwork is amazing if you're into that style of art, but let's talk about the value. This card's value non-foil was around $37 prior to this announcement, so that's not a terrible investment right off the bat. Of course, I just want to clarify that I'm not necessarily giving any financial advice here, just sort of talking about the actual surface value versus what you're expected to pay. At the end of the day, you do want to make your own decisions with your money and make sure that you're being smart, but $37 for the non-foil, and then we've got $78 for the standard foil, which is a decent value for sure, and this card, obviously very, very popular. Slippers are an extremely popular deck. This was left out of the Commander deck for Commander Masters, so there's certainly a lot of reasons to think that this could be a good pickup just on that card alone. Now, we do have Rewind, which is very much inexpensive for whatever that's worth. It's around 20 cents, give or take, for the non-foil, and around 67 cents for the foil. Of course, not every card in every Secret Lair is going to be great. Sometimes it's about the art and the actual value, and this certainly does look cool. It's not a terrible card either. I don't know where it sees much play nowadays, but it's still a decent enough inclusion. I do think the artwork and the style of this makes it really neat, but of course, this is not necessarily going to be the major selling point unless you're really into that art. Then we've got Rampant Growth. Rampant Growth, of course, a very well-known, very useful card. It has been printed 1,000 times and then some, but of course, it is here with a new art that just looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, I can't say enough how good the art styles are on these, but let's just be transparent. Rampant Growth is about 25 cents, and foil variants of the card are probably close to about $1 for the cheapest. I've seen, Double Masters 2022 around that price, so we'll use that as a barometer. You could pick up a foil copy of this card for $1, so I can't imagine that that is going to be a massive driving point for this particular Secret Lair. But what might help a little bit in terms of value is Food Chain. This card, which is my favorite of the four arts for sure, just got a reprint in Double Masters 2022 back in August of 2022, and is around $17 for the non-foil and $20 for the standard foil. So if we look at those numbers and kind of put them together and then add up all of the different values, we're looking at a solid average. We're looking at a total of $54.45 for the non-foil in terms of the actual value at the cheapest for these cards. And then for the foil, it is a little bit higher at $99.65. So, I think this one is actually pretty solid overall, and I might be ordering this one myself just to get specifically for the food chain, but I also do kind of like the first sliver. It's nice to see, though, that they not only took a unique art approach to these, but also put a couple cards in there that are worthwhile. So for me, this one is a win. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, next up on our list is Absolute Annihilation, and full disclosure, I don't particularly care much for the art style on these, but I acknowledge that there are a lot of people who will. So let's look at the cards themselves for that determination, starting off with Terminate. This is a pretty darn good Rakdos card in general. 1 black, 1 red, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. And while it is good, it is also a card that has been printed many times in almost every Commander product that has come up, and it is not exactly that expensive at about 50 cents for the non-foil, and for a foil version of this card, you're looking at about 97 cents. We'll call it $1 for the purpose of, ease of access here, but this card wasn't exactly one in high demand of a reprint, so you'd really only be going after this if you were interested in the art or the artist who made it. Then we've got Oppression, which is a really good card, but the problem with Oppression is it also just got a reprint in Wilds of Eldraine, which means it's kind of got some competition there already. But this card is about let's call it $1, give or take, for the non-foil version. However, there is only one foil version that exists currently, and that is the Wilds of Eldraine Enchanting Tales. It was previously only printed in sets that did not have foil options, so the foils are about $5. I guess it has a little bit of a leg up in that regard. If you want a, higher rarity, specialized art version in foil, this could appeal to you. But either way, you can definitely get a foil pretty, affordably, considering the alternative options for this card's value. Next up is Mass Hysteria, a decent card for sure that is an enchantment that gives all creatures haste. A normal version of this card, which has only been printed once in Mirrodin, is about $10 for the non-foil. Not terrible, but not exactly great against a $40 price point. And then we've got the foil, which is about 40 bucks. So that's a bit of a buff for this, being well above any of these other cards in terms of value. But again, you're paying 40 for the foil version, and all of the other cards so far you're looking at are less than $5. So you're pretty much paying for just this card if it's one that you really want. And finally, Abrade, another very good card that sees a lot of play but has been printed many times as well. A regular version of this card is about 25 cents, give or take, and a foil is about 50 cents. So the demand is just not there. If we add up the prices for all four of them in non-foil, we get a total of approximately $12, which obviously is not good versus the $30 you're spending on this. Things are a little better if you add them up in foil, although admittedly not by a ton. The total value of the foils in this are $46.50 if you were to buy them elsewhere, meaning you're essentially spending, like I said previously, $40 plus tax plus shipping to get the Mass Hysteria and foil. This one is a big miss for me. Not only do I not like the art, but again, the value just isn't there. These reprints are just not worth it. And so as such, I would say this is really only one to go after if you just want the art or want to collect the cards. But to be totally honest, you could probably wait and buy the singles from this less than the actual cost of the Secret Lair, unless it just, I guess, doesn't sell well and there's just a scarce amount of them. But again, this one for me personally is very much a no in the purchase column. Alright, next up on our list is Buggin' Out. This one is very much themed around bugs and insects and some kind of like crazy, chaotic, abstract art. I like it and don't like it at the same time. I feel like on a few of the cards there's just a bit too much going on. It's like hard to follow and it just isn't aesthetically pleasing on the eyes, but maybe that's what they're going for, and like I said, a lot of people might actually really like this, so if you do, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. But let's talk about the cards themselves. Starting with Grist the Hunger Tide, this card is about $6.50 for the non-foil. Only one printing right now out of Modern Horizons 2, but it's a very good card, and it definitely is one that sees play. It also can be a commander, which is pretty cool, I think, and it's just a unique card in the way that it's designed, counting as a creature. The foil version of this card in its cheapest is about $10, so not much more than the regular, but it's a little bit of a premium, which makes it at least somewhat decent. If this card is, a mid-level card that's not really carrying the Secret Lair, then it definitely has something going for it, but the rest of the cards, would have to sort of back it up in terms of the price and making it worthwhile. Noxious Revival is a very well played card, very popular card, of course, with that Phyrexian mana, being able to play it for free, essentially. You pay 2 life, but in most formats, it's not going to be a huge deal. This card's around $3.50, give or take, for a non-foil, which isn't bad. $3.50, if that wasn't clear. Pretty solid, card to have access to. Where this really shines, though, is the foil, and this is where we kind of deviate a bit. This is $73 for the foil, so there's a massive premium on this out of New Phyrexia, and it's the only foil version of it that exists, so definitely, an understanding balance here between, like, okay, the regular is not great, but the foil might, is worth more than what you're paying for the Secret Lair just on its own. If you're a fan of this card, it's definitely a solid inclusion and one to keep an eye on. Obviously, I don't think the foil version of this is going to stay as high as the New Phyrexia version, but still, there may be some actual demand for it there. Giant Ataphage, not exactly the best card in the world. It's about 50 cents, give or take, for the non-foil, and it only has a couple prints and only one foil print, which we'll get to in just a second. I have to say, though, the artwork on this guy is great. His eyes, he looks all goofy. Big fan of that. The card's not bad, and it's definitely, got niche uses in certain places, but obviously I think its inclusion in here is due to being an insect. The foil version's about $7, give or take, out of Gatecrash, so it's okay. It's not really going to be like a huge selling point for anyone, and this is also a mythic, which is just kind of like unfortunate for the set that it came in, but this again isn't really moving the needle for anyone either way. Eldritch Evolution is from Eldritch Moon, of course. It's got a couple other prints as well, but this is its primary print. And it's about $5, give or take, for the non-foil. It's a pretty darn good card, all things considered. But again, the foil version of it is around $23, so another decent jump that makes the foil version of this Secret Lair look a bit more appealing, at least compared to the non-foil. And Eldritch Evolution, again, just not, the most accessible. It was in the Mystery Booster, and it had a separate Secret Lair. I think it was like a Secret Lair promo, but this is basically just going to be for Secret Lair in general, so it should probably bring the price down a little bit more. But if you like the art style, I don't like this art at all, personally speaking. But it's not bad, and the foil version definitely does carry some value that will help it a little bit there. Now, finally, we've got Mazarek, Crawl Death Priest. This was in the original Double Masters, as well as, original sets. I think it might have been in a Commander product before that. It's around $9, give or take, for the non-foil version of this card, and it's actually not horrible. I'm sure there's definitely uses for it. And then it's about $12 for the foil, so pretty straightforward. So yeah, I did double check. This was in Commander Anthology and Commander 2015, so there's only one existent foil printing of it. It looks neat. I just, again, it's not really worth a ton as it stands, so when you're looking at the values and everything, it just doesn't really hit home for me personally. Now, when we add up the totals of these, the non-foil comes out to about $23.50, which is really bad. You're paying $30 to get $23 worth of cards, and again, there is, always the chance that these will end up dropping a bit, over time, depending on the appeal of them and whether or not people actually open them up, so again, it's not great. However, the foil version comes out to about $124, which is a significant 3 times your investment in terms of what you're paying for the foil version and what you're getting in return. But again, consider whether or not you're actually interested in the foil versions of these cards and whether or not you want to play them. I would definitely not recommend purchasing this for value necessarily, because even though it is a good, upswing on some of the foils, a lot of them don't have other foil prints or they're very old, which is sort of where the pricing comes from. So this one for me, I definitely would say pass on the regular unless you really just want the cards, and I would say you could go for it on the foil and definitely do okay, but just make sure you're buying it for the right reason instead of buying it to try to profit, because I just don't think that profit margin is really going to be there for this product. But I could be wrong. Again, I can't predict the future. I don't know exactly how this is all going to shake out. Next up, we've got Keep Partying Hard, but Shred Harder, and with the edgy name like that, I have to say the artwork definitely lives up. It is really cool art. These are all designed really unique, and I think people are going to be super into them if it's your cup of tea. But let's look at the cards themselves. Vial Smasher the Fierce from Commander 2016. This has only one print, and I don't think it even has a non-foil. I believe it's only available in foil from that Commander deck, so there is no non-foil price data, but the foil version of this card is $9, give or take. So looking at this, I guess if you want this card in an alternate version, you're probably going to be interested in this, but I don't really have a great price comparison. So $9 on the foil, nothing for the non-foil. We're probably just going to figure out a workaround for the totals here, because there's just no... there's no way to break that down fairly. We'll just use a $10 price point for both categories for the sake of having totals. But if this is a card you're interested in, the artwork is amazing, and it's definitely probably going to be the most desired version of this card, so I would say it's a solid inclusion here. We've got Jeska, Thrice Reborn from Commander Legends, and this card is about $3 for the non-foil, and also the artwork is it's night and day. This artwork is amazing. It looks very, very different from the other one, but the foil version is about $6 at the cheapest, so double up on the regular, but we're talking lower numbers here. A pretty darn good card. It can also be your commander, and it has partners, so there's some really interesting mechanics in play there. I think people are going to like this card. I just don't think the value is necessarily there, or the demand, really, but I can't complain about that art. Godo Bandit Warlord is another one that actually just got reprinted in Commander Masters. It was a pretty decent price before that reprint, but it has since dropped. It is about 75 cents for the non-foil, and that's me being generous, and about $1 for the foil, but this artwork is absolutely sick. I do think this will definitely be a card that ends up being worth something because of the design and the fact that the card's also good. And I mean, look at the art. Like, the art is incredible. It's insane. This is probably one of my favorite arts across the board from all of these Secret Lairs. So I just wanted to to give that its day. And again, like I said, the foil version of this card at the cheapest is about $1, so we're not really talking about a huge difference at all. Finally, we've got Tebish Zat, Doom of Fools, and this one is another card from Commander Legends that can be your commander and has partners, so perhaps you play it with Jessica. There you go, with your fancy new edgy versions. But this card is about $4 for the non-foil and $8 for the foil. So again, not dealing in the highest of values here, but let's get some totals and see if maybe this can be redeemed after all. Alright, so for the non-foils, we get a total of $18, and that's taking into consideration the fact that Vial Smasher didn't actually have a non-foil, so we're just using its only existing price. Obviously, that is a terrible price point, and the foils are not much better at $25, so you are losing out either way in terms of your actual investment versus the value of the cards you're getting back. But this is a good example of a Secret Lair that could actually be in demand and have value because of the art style and just the unique approach to what makes a Secret Lair cool and what makes a Secret Lair stand out. So I would definitely not shoot this one down as one not to buy, but again, I would recommend, you know, if it's something you're interested in, get it because you want it. Get it because you like the art. And there's nothing wrong with that because there is some absolutely sick artwork in here, but the value in terms of the singles is not really there. This is one that you're going to get if you think the artwork is worth it, and that's really all I can say about that. I would definitely enjoy picking up a couple of these, but I will not be pre-ordering this personally. But definitely, it's not a horrible purchase, I think, if you just really like the art and what it has going for it. Now this next one, I'm not sure if it's going to be a swing and a miss or a home run, but this is Magic the Baseballing. And of course, if you can't tell by the name, these are baseball card themed Magic cards, which is certainly cool. They are double-sided, and these were leaked a little while before the actual Superdrop, so I thought they were interesting. And it looks like there might be a playmat coming out for them at some point, although I'm not sure when. But these are definitely out there, and you're going to have people that like them, you're going to have people that don't. They kind of remind me of like the Serial Secret Lair, where it's like super cool, and like, but some people are going to not like the double-sided or whatever. You know, I think if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's kind of your prerogative, but I do think it's cool to see them branch out here with these. So I really do. I like them a lot. I definitely think this is one I would consider ordering if I wanted the cards, but we'll have to see how they do. But let's look at the actual values themselves. Starting off with Garrick Wild Speaker. At the cheapest, he's about $4 for the non-foil. You know, a solid enough card. Going back to Magic 2011 for his, I believe, initial release, unless it was the 2010. I'm not sure which one that was. And a foil version of him is about $12. So, you know, it's all right. Kind of right where you'd expect in terms of a card of that nature. So he's a decent enough start. Next up, Chandra Nalar. Very cool artwork here for Chandra. The cheapest Chandra I could find was about 75 cents for the non-foil, and then $7.50 for the foil. I just don't think this Chandra is all that great, but I'm sure there's some collectible aspect to it, and people might find ways to use it. Perhaps in a Planeswalker deck themed directly around Chandra. I don't know. I'm not the one building it. Liliana Vess is another one that is pretty solid, and this one is about $5 at the cheapest for its non-foil version, and $17 for its foil version. So this one's got a little bit more of a premium, of course, being a Liliana, but it's definitely not a terrible card, and it's definitely one that I could see sort of holding value over time, so I'll give it that. We've got Jace Beleren here. This is about 75 cents for the non-foil. It actually was just reprinted in the Planeswalker Party Commander deck. The foil version is a little bit more, around 12, so not a bad inclusion. Obviously, you can see what they're doing here with the original Gatewatch and all 5 of these characters, so I think it was more about thematic inclusion than picking maybe the best versions of these Planeswalkers, but still, it's solid enough for the foil, at least. And then finally, we've got a Johnny Goldmane. This one is actually the most expensive at $6 for the non-foil, and then the foil is around $14, so pretty solid. Obviously, this is a decent card in its own right. And you get the 5 sort of, you know, OGs here with baseball theme. And I think this is actually kind of neat. Total value for them in non-foil comes out to around $16.50, which is not great. And the foil comes out to about $60, which is not awful. It's at least more than the individual foils themselves. And they do have that uniqueness with the baseball style going for them. So I do think this is a somewhat okay Secret Lair. But again, it just depends on if this is your cup of tea. And again, it's definitely one of the more unique ones. And I think it may end up doing really well for itself just because it is that baseball card style crossover, but we'll have to wait and see what it actually looks like. I do think the foil version is your best bet if you're going to get one, because the non-foil is just an absolute dud of a return. So unless you're buying these just for yourself because you like them, I would stay away from the non-foil personally. And finally, we've got Artist Series Kev Walker, definitely a well-known artist within the Magic the Gathering community, and there are some absolutely beautiful artworks on these, but it's not just about the art, it's about the actual value if you're going to be putting your money into this. So let's look at the cards, starting off with Fleshbag Marauder. Now, I will say this is absolutely gorgeous. However, Fleshbag Marauder is about 10 cents at the cheapest, and the foil version of Fleshbag Marauder is about $1 at the cheapest. So you are looking at a very, very cheap card. And so the art and the artist really has to be what drives the premium. And that's really going to come down to an opinion. Does this work for you in that way? Do you really enjoy this art? If you do, then you'll be happy with this. Carnage Tyrant is another one that is just an incredibly drawn art. There's no doubt about that. But the card itself is about $6 to $7. We'll call it 7 to be generous, out of Ixalan. And the foil version of it is about 11. So it's not working with a ton of value, but it's certainly better than the, 10-cent card we just saw. And obviously with Ixalan's, next expansion coming out later this year, there could be some hype for that, I suppose. If you're into this, you'll be happy to have it here. If you're not, it's probably going to be a skip for you. Now, the biggest card in this is It That Betrays. This card is very, very strong, and of course, with the Eldrazi deck, it actually did get a reprint, although the reprint, even then, is still worth a decent amount. At the cheapest, this card is $6 in non-foil, but where it really shines, of course, is the actual foil version, which is about $89. And of course, that is massive, and it's the only version of it. It's from Rise of the Eldrazi, so if you were looking for a foil, wanting to play a foil, it has not been cheap, and that may be the saving grace for this Secret Lair in foil, but we'll figure that out in a moment when we actually add up all of the math. But again, the artwork here is definitely not in doubt. This guy's art is incredible, and I do want to be sure to shout that out and be consistent. And lastly, we've got Feyburrow Elder, another cool card. This is from Throne of Eldraine, and it's about $3 in non-foil and $3.50 in foil. So you can see that when we're talking about the actual values here, this Secret Lair is being hard carried in the foil slot by one card. Let's figure out the actual totals, though, and make a decision. Alright, so for the total of the non-foils, we're looking at about $16, give or take, which is not good. That's almost half the price you're actually paying to get the product. And for the foils, though, we're at $102.50, which is significantly better, about a triple up on the initial investment. And I think that all comes down to It That Betrays, of course. So the foil version of It That Betrays is hard carrying this Secret Lair if you want the card and, are happy with the other ones. I definitely could see the logic in going for that. I don't think that the It That Betrays foil from Rise of the Eldrazi is really going to drop anyway because it's so old and so collectible, while also being a very popularly played card. So I don't know. This Secret Lair, I would not recommend in non-foil at all. Unless you really just like the artist, want to support the artist and collect those cards. That's a totally different thing. But from a value perspective, it's a no-go for me. And I think from a foil perspective, the numbers are there, $40 to get a card that you can't otherwise only get in foil for 90 is certainly not bad. But then, do you like the other cards enough, or do you just, are you happy with the It That Betrays that you have? Ultimately, you're going to have to make that decision for yourself. But overall, the Secret Lair drop this time around really brought some cool concepts to the table. Before someone says anything, I know there was one about lands, and the lands are cool, but paying money for basic lands is kind of silly in my opinion, and I'm not going to waste the time evaluating the price of a basic land Secret Lair. So if you want them, buy them. If you don't, go ahead. I hope Wizards, in the future will maybe make those land Secret Lairs either a little bit cheaper or put more lands in them instead of charging people for basic lands when places typically give them out for free. I understand the idea of a premium and all of that in collectability, but I think there's better ways to do it. Overall, though, I think it's a pretty solid slate for the fall Superdrop, and there are a lot of things to like. Interested to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are there things you're planning on buying or picking up, or maybe not, and how and why? So let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.